A whirlwind of toxic miasma engulfs a moon in a distant corner of the galaxy. The flora and fauna rot away as a sinister laugh cackles across the valleys of death. The noxious clouds part as a massive orb of multicolored flame plummets towards Mortarion. The Pale King surrounds himself with Nurgle's rot flies as the warp flame takes the shape of the Crimson King, Magnus the Red. The two demon primarchs brandish their weapons, and the Chaos Gods themselves are in awe. Which one of their pawns would emerge victorious? What is up, guys? It's the Sound Alchemist, and as you can see here, I've always wondered who would win between the Chaos Primarchs of the four gods of Nurgle, Slaanesh, Tzeentch, and Khorne. Here we have Magnus against Mortarion, two really powerful Primarchs, one that is all about conjuring up psychic sorcery stuff, and another who is super resilient, all thanks to being pledged to Papa Nurgle. However, when it comes to the Demon Primarchs, it seems like they too are always a constant wheel that is turning, never one on top more so than the others, but in recent times GW has unveiled that at least on the tabletop, the strongest Demon Primarch is that of Fulgrim. Now, I don't know about you guys, but when it comes to power levels, it seems that Fulgrim shouldn't win, especially when you have Angron, this murder rage beast that is just going to fight until he cannot fight anymore. Now, the other ones are more tactical. I feel like Fulgrim is just there to inflict the most pain, but pain doesn't really affect Angron that much when I feel like he can just anger through it. If anything, maybe Mortarion would come out on top because he can just keep the punches coming, and at the same time, Magnus should always be a top contender because of his smarts and his psychic ability. But for one, we see that, of course, GW is pushing the narrative forward, and they're always trying to sell models. So what's the newest shiny model? That of Fulgrim. But that's just my opinion. Let me know if you guys think that Fulgrim is the strongest of these Demon Primarchs, because when you look at the current lore, it seems that their ideologies and overall who they used to be is kind of waning. So for example, Angron wants to die. Mortarion wants to do his own thing, just kind of staying away from Nurgle and giving him the middle finger. Magnus is so prideful, he just thinks he can outsmart Tzeentch, but is actually playing into Tzeentch's plans. And Fulgrim wants to indulge in debauchery, which again also plays into that of Slaanesh. So these warriors are kind of trying to go against, or at least do their own thing, and it's always being puppeteered by their patron gods. So regardless if they're doing bidding for the gods, it seems that these Demon Primarchs are never at the forefront. You either see them being a pawn in one of Abaddon's Black Crusades, or they're fighting against one of their loyalist Primarch brothers. For example, we've seen Guilliman go toe-to-toe with pretty much all of these Demon Primarchs, except Angron. He went toe-to-toe against Fulgrim back in 30k, and he was going to die if he didn't get put into stasis. He fought against Magnus during the new 8th edition lore, and he fought Magnus to a standstill, all because he had help. He had the Sisters of Silence. And then again, he fought against Mortarion during the Plague Wars, and Guilliman actually died. If it wasn't for the Emperor stepping in and resurrecting him and giving him a boost in power, Guilliman would have been dead. So that's twice already that Guilliman has died at the hands of these Demon Primarchs. So what exactly is going on here? On the other hand, we do have the Lion. Once he returned to the 40k era, he went toe-to-toe against Angron, and albeit a very difficult fight, he did come out on top, and he severed Angron's head with the shield of the Emperor. So it seems that the Warriors of Chaos are very much stronger than the Loyalist Primarchs, but the thing that tips it in their favor is the Emperor's weapons, the Sword of the Emperor and the Shield of the Emperor. So when you look at it that way, it seems that maybe we need more when it comes to the Imperium side. We need another Primarch for sure, because right now they're outnumbered 1-2. You have 4 Demon Primarchs, only 2 Loyalist Primarchs out there, and at that, Guilliman and the Lion haven't even met just yet. Now, that's not to say that the 4 demon primarchs are working in tandem to corrupt, the galaxy. They have their own agendas, and teamwork doesn't seem to be in their tactics. But at the same time, the Imperium is fighting an uphill battle, and if they do tend to meet up and finally push back against chaos, I don't see these 4 demon primarchs working together. Now, they may show up here and there, especially if Abaddon is making some moves or you have Vastor in the shadows, but their power can definitely be used to put a huge blow against the Imperium. But let's not forget that the true nature of chaos is that such power is born of spiritual weakness, and that any deal with the gods of chaos is ultimately self-defeating. So yes, they did get stronger physically, but they all suffered when it came to their mental fortitude. For example, Angron is clouded by rage, Mortarion by self-pity, Arrogance is for Magnus, and Fulgrim by apathy. But if they came out stronger with this deal with chaos, then chaos would have failed, for it would be no longer a truly corrupting force, a cautious tale of morality. You must always lose just as much, and often more, than you get back when you make a deal with the gods. So before I end this video, I do want to leave it with the battle between Angron and the Lion, because I feel like it's one of the more epic battles that we've had in recent times between Primarchs. So with that being said, guys, let's go ahead and dive in. L. Johnson was disgusted by his former brother's hideous form, contemptuous of the monster Angron had become. Yet he did not underestimate the supernatural might of that dark apotheosis, which granted the demon Primarch even more strength. The Lion fought with every iota of skill he possessed, channeling all the lessons he had ever learned about combat. For his part, Angron felt little beyond the furious pounding of the butcher's nails. He dimly recognized the Lion, but L. Johnson was just another foe to be slain. An eternity of unending rage and hate had blunted the Red Angel's capacity to revile one enemy more than any other. Angron would take his once brother's head for corn. The 2 demigods fought their way across a mechanical plateau where piston columns pounded maniacally and jets of white-hot flame erupted from hidden apparatuses. Angron sought to lop L. Johnson's head from his shoulders, but fealty was there to block the blow. Somniarises rebounded again from the Emperor's shield, and as the shockwave drove Angron back, the Lion seized the chance to duck around a pummeling row of pistons to gain some space. Angron dropped his head and bullied straight through the slabs of machinery. He bellowed as he wrenched aside sparking mechanisms and hacked apart steel-braided sinew, only to recoil as the Lion smashed the Emperor's shield upon his face. L. Johnson retreated again, a strategy in coercing his mind as he clattered down a spiraling brass staircase. He was gaining a sense on his foe. Angron was a devastatingly powerful and unrelenting enemy, but the Lion thought he knew how he might defeat his former brother. His train of thought was disrupted as the stairwave gave violent lurch. Looking up, L. Johnson saw Angron he had taken to the air, letting his weapons dangle from their chain manacles as he grasped the stairway's superstructure, then wrenched the entire edifice away from the side of the mechanical plateau. With an oath, the Lion leapt clear as the spiral stair buckled under its own weight and collapsed. He dropped, cloak rippling behind him, and landed atop the roof of a Gothic ruin. Despite the tumorous masses of biotechnology that grew from it, L. Johnson felt a horrible sense of familiarity as he glanced around the crumbling rooftop and saw the hooded statues that dotted it. He did not know precisely what this structure had been, but he recognized the architectural style of Caliban before Imperial compliance. The Lion had no time for bitter reflection. Angron fell upon him like a roaring thunderbolt spat from the skies of a dancing flame. The Primarch's weapons clashed and clashed again as the Lion gave ground before his enemy's brutal onslaughts. Lost to rage, Angron might have been, but hardwired instinct, coupled with dark gifts of his patron god, lent him tremendous martial skill. Unleashing a flurry of blows upon the lion, he forced open a gap in his opponent's guard before landing a kick to old Johnson's chest that cracked his armor and threw him through a statue with punishing force. Sensing what was coming next, L. Johnson kept rolling even as Angron's axe slammed into the rooftop where he had been only a split second before. Reaching the roof's edge, the lion threw himself out into thin air and dropped into a tilted metal platform some 30 feet below. It looked as though loyalist and heretic war engines had been dueling here before the cataclysm, awakening the planet's energies below. Dark Angels and World Eater battle tanks lay helpless where they had been hurled onto the roofs, or blazed where they had smashed together, or maybe even slid into contact with the lightning-wreathed pylons. More tanks, and a handful of staggering Chaos Knights were still mobile. Some crews looked to be falling back, trying to outmaneuver their vehicles into more stable ground. Angron swooped from atop the Gothic ruin and fell upon the lion once more. Dropping to one knee, he raised the Emperor's shield and caught the full force of Angron's meteoric descent upon it. Golden energy erupted in a tremendous shockwave, and the Red Angel was hurled back to smash down amidst the precariously battling war machines. If the lion had expected a moment's respite from this gambit, he would be disappointed. Angron rose with an incensed howl that hurled a World Eater predator towards the lion with an underhanded swing of his axe. Seeing the improbable projectile coming, L. Johnson dove aside. However, he was not quick enough to avoid the next tank, a Dark Angel's impulsor that Angron had sent slamming and bouncing over and over in his direction. The vehicle hit the lion and smashed him back into the wall of Gothic ruin hard enough to crater the stonework. Angron howled and charged, beating his wings to give himself more momentum. Bloodied and in pain, but knowing he had moments to act, the lion heaved aside the crumpled wreck of the impulsor and leapt atop it. He spared a moment's thought for his gene sons, slain within the ruined vehicle, and anger smoldered within him. Angron leapt to strike, and the lion dove aside, leaping away from the wreck and hammering the Emperor's shield into the back of Angron's skull. Propelled forward by the blow, the Red Angel smashed headlong into the ruin, and he was buried in an avalanche of rubble. L. Johnson backed swiftly away, limping slightly dimly aware of the tank still dueling around him, even as he kept his attention on the rubble heap. He knew Angron could not be so easily defeated, but he hoped at least to have wounded his former brother. If nothing else, the ignominy of being buried alive would have stoked Angron's fury to new heights. Something the lion was counting on. The rubble heap erupted. Flaming chunks of masonry rocketed through the air, several striking tanks with the force of wrecking balls. Angron came at the lion. It was a mere red blur, eyes blazing of hate, and weapons swinging wildly. So sudden and ferocious was the assault that even L. Johnson could not react in time. He managed to bring the Emperor's shield up between himself and Angron, but the angle was poor, and the titanic discharge of energy threw him backwards as violently as his foe was. The ground fell away beneath the lion, and he tumbled back down into the fume. Angron thundered after his prey. Again the lion evaded, struck and faded back from his enemy's lightning-fast counterattack. In his mind, he fought monsters again in the mist-wreathed Carbonite forests. The few times Angron landed a blow, the Emperor's shield was always there to block it and send the demon Primarch reeling back. All the while, Angron's rage mounted until it danced across his body as spectral flame. His muscles and eyes bulged, as though he might literally burst from the anger swelling within. Then came a piston, rushing up from the depths and discharging steam as it slammed to halt at its apogee. For a moment it blasted aside the veil of smog. The lion was revealed in the act of slipping around Angron's flank for yet another goading strike. There was no thought, only the primal urge to kill. As Angron beat his wings and hurled himself at the lion like a living avalanche, he swung his weapons in a wide arc as he came, aiming to scissor them through Johnson's neck. in a move no shield could possibly block. Yet this time, the lion made no effort to defend. With blistering speed, he instead dropped to one knee, braced his blade with his whole body, and let angron slam straight into its raised point. The demon primarch's own impetus drove the glowing blade up through his torso until it erupted from the nape of his neck in a fountain of gore. Borne on by the force of Angron's charge, the two demigods rolled and bounced through the fumes. Angron came to rest on his back, one wing pinned under him, the corporeal form unable to re-knit its calamitous wound with fealty still transfixing it. The red angel thrashed and howled, one clawed hand dug into its wounded sternum in search of the blade's ichor-slick grip. The lion loomed over Angron, armor bloodied and dented. He gripped the Emperor's shield with both hands and gave Angron no time to react. With a roar, Lionel Johnson brought the glowing edge of his shield down upon the demon primarch's head, driving it through the bridge of Angron's nose with such force that it literally embedded itself in the metal surface beneath. Angron's corporeal form detonated like a tank round whose propellant was distilled hate, blasting his animus apart with such a tremendous force of released rage that even the demon primarch's indomitable will could not draw it back together. L. Johnson was thrown clear of the blast and came back up with his cloak smoldering and his armor cracked and scorched. Breathing hard, his body racked with pain of countless wounds sustained during the battle against Angron, he limped back to the blood-stained crater in which fealty lay. He recovered his blade, and the lion felt certain that he would see his former brother again, likely sooner than he might hope. But for now, Angron was banished.
Oh, if you could put my freedom back in